my go-to. So, all right, and I guess I'll just call out names as people are appearing on mine, so we're not tripping over each other. So I guess Dave, you're actually up next if you want to.
Oh, sure. Hi, Dave Ramsey, developer of FM Perception, FM Comparison, and other fun stuff.
Very good.
How about your Mexican thing? Dish.
Oh, my Mexican thing. Yeah, I don't really have anything today.
Okay, and that's okay.
Cinco de Mayo snuck up on me this year.
All right, Kim.
Okay, I am Kim Coles. I'm with Equiparts. We're a commercial plumbing and hardware distributor. I'm the system administrator, but I've been using FileMaker 10, 15 years. I can't recall, but and I'm just going to go with the margarita since it's right there on the screen.
All right, that works. Heidi.
Sorry, eating dinner. My name is Heidi Porter. It's been about 10 years, and I'll go with mango margarita.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Deal. Tim.
Okay, I'm Tim Bulwark. I'm out of the Columbus, Ohio area. I've been attending the Columbus, Ohio users group meetings for a couple of years, but I've kind of been doing FileMaker in a learning mode. I'm a beginner, been doing it for about a year now. And I'm part-time retired and part-time teaching at Ohio State. Well, I'm sorry, the Ohio State University. And oh yeah, you got to take the D in there. And I'm really depressed because I might be losing my Packers quarterback if the rumors are right, but I hope not. And my Mexican dish is, I like the frozen strawberry margarita, but if you drink it too quick, you get brain freeze. So I think I covered everything, right, Todd?
I think you got it all. Okay. All right, Daniel.
I'm Daniel Shanahan. I'm in Northwest Ohio. My company is New Leaf Data, and I have a product called Trace Inventory, and I like chicken enchiladas.
Good deal. Ken, and before you begin, Ken, is your background Dr. Strange's Sanctum Sanctorium or whatever it's called? Oh, I think you're muted there, Ken. There we go.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. That's why I put that one up.
Oh, well, it was appreciated, so thank you very much.
Let's see. I'm retired, so I'm just dabbling in FileMaker these days. I worked at Carnegie Mellon and played with FileMaker probably for about, I don't know, over 30 of the 38 years I was there. Mexican, well, I actually forgot it was Cinco de Mayo, but I did eat tacos for dinner, so I guess I covered it. What else? That's it, right?
That's it. You got it all.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Paul.
Hi, Paul Sprague. I work at Quad Graphics, a big printing company based in Wisconsin. I live in Southern Connecticut, and I've been using FileMaker since 1988. And my favorite Mexican thing is I like to do guacamole with roasted corn, diced tomatoes, and cilantro. It comes out really nice.
Very good. Laura.
Hi, Laura from Cross IT. Been working with FileMaker over 10 years. Mexican, usually I order taquitos mexicanos, but I also like to make homemade salsa. So.
Hey, Teresa and Thomas.
Hello. So we are Teresa and Thomas from Profile Developers. I've been using FileMaker for 13 or 14 years, and you've been using it for
about 30.
Yeah, forever. Mexican. I make a mean taco bake, which is like ground turkey or chicken, and season it. Onions, black beans, salsa, and then you put cornbread mix on top and bake it, which is really good because you get the sweet and the spicy all together. And then I've also never met a margarita that I didn't love. So.
Right,
Yeah,
very good.
Same, basically.
Yeah.
All right, Tony.
Tony White. Let's see, FileMaker since version 2 or 3, whatever that works out to be. New York, Tony White Live on social media, and leads us into, I'll go with guacamole, avocados, maybe throw in mole because it hasn't been mentioned. Pretty clever little chocolate use in the main dish. And I think that's it.
All right, very good. Egbert.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Egbert. I'm the owner of .fmp. I'm from Berlin, Germany. And recently I came across the idea to collect all the events taking place now online. So that's why I'm here with you, because I looked in my calendar and I saw there's an event and although it's 1 in the morning, I'd really love to see what Beverly has to tell us about XML. And regarding Mexican, to be honest, the only Mexican I know is Filipinian. So the guys from Philippines, and I'm not quite sure if that counts. So I can't give you a honest answer regarding my preferred Mexican dish.
That's quite all right. And you certainly get the prize for joining us at 1 a.m. in the morning. So
yeah, well,
Guten Tag. So.
Guten Morgen, yeah.
Yes.
Good morning. Yeah.
All right, Chris.
As he struggles to find the mute button, I'm Chris Moyer with the Moyer Group. I've been slinging FileMaker since 90 or 91, somewhere in there. Favorite dish would probably be either vegan enchiladas or maybe empanadas, which are also nice. So there you go.
All right, very good. How about Greg?
I'm Greg Pawanda, engineering manager with Aero Electronics. I've been playing with FileMaker just for a few years, also using it personally. And then my favorite Mexican dish is camarones a la diabla. And just a little note, the US, we like to celebrate Cinco de Mayo a lot more than Mexico does. So it's actually not even a federal holiday in Mexico.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that tidbit. Let's see, Martin.
Hi, I'm Martin Sorich, and I live and work in the Bay Area. And I am, I own my own consultancy, and I've been using and developing in FileMaker since version 4.0. So a little over 22 years. And my favorite dish is our burritos.
Right, very good. Eric.
Eric Lewis. I've been with Cross IT for, it's been 6 years now, I guess. Favorite Mexican dish? Honestly, I'd have to look at the menu, so I'm just going to go anything that has steak in it.
All right, good enough. And then I think Jill.
Just took a bite of pizza, and my cat is thinking she can get it now that I'm not there. I've been using FileMaker for maybe 10 years. I'm long retired now from Carnegie Mellon, and I mostly try some things out with FileMaker now and then, and I come here because I love to hear what people are doing. As far as Mexican things go, chicken mole, which somebody mentioned, is my absolute favorite. Not always easy to get. And I really never met a margarita I didn't like. They have come to like me less as I have gotten older, but my mouth has watered as you all went through your favorites.
Very good. Did I miss anybody before I turn it over to Beverly for the? All right, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, Beverly, you're up.
My favorite dish is really Cuban. It's a Roy con pollo, and it's chicken and rice, it's black beans and all kinds of stuff, and I make it. My husband had a really good teacher in school that was Cuban and taught him how to make it, and he taught me how to make it. It's very good. Okay, my name is Beverly Voth, and it's a long O, it's German. I live in a forest in Kentucky, and it's near a waterfall. I'll show you a picture in a minute. I wrote a book, and the joke with the dress, whether it's blue or gold, I got a couple pictures of that for the book. And how long have I been doing FileMaker? I really was at the physical launch when Claris opened their office, and I actually have a floppy that was before Claris bought it, so long time. And then I got into XML because of the web stuff, which I started the same time as FileMaker. So, all right, so we got the margarita. Here's the waterfall. I can zoom up if you need it larger. And it's Cumberland Falls. And at night, when the moon is full, that rainbow becomes what they call a moonbow.
Moonbow, yeah, I remember.
It's more of a white light, and it occurs every month that it's clear, that the moon is bright. Whereas other places in the world, you'll see it kind of really sporadically, but this is really consistent every month. So it's pretty famous. And I had a double rainbow I tried to get a picture of, and the kid showed up, my grandson. So you can't really see it very well. And the book, is it blue or is it gold? I was looking for pictures of the book, and I saw one that was like this, so I grabbed it, but it really is blue, and it's been around a long time. Okay, I spoke at DevCon, and I got a couple of excellence awards. So, in the community. Okay, basically, I'm going to talk about XML, FileMaker. We're going to get into a couple other things, and I had originally 20 minutes, so what I have is sort of really brief, but I have a lot of resources at the end that I'm going to put out a PDF that y'all can get and see some of the different resources, and I'll do a couple demos. Okay, so what is XML? Why do we use it? What are some of the standards that might be important if you're going to get into XML? And the question always comes up, XML versus JSON, and really how they relate to FileMaker. And then again, some resources, and I threw in some JSON resources as well. And then question and answers. I'm not going to go through everything. If you want to put stuff in the chat, questions as they come along, that's great. And then at the end, we'll try to go back and answer them and have as much time as we can for some demos. Okay. I zoom that. Can you see that better zoomed? Okay. XML is extensible markup language, and it's basically tagged text. Looks a lot like HTML, and it's nested, and it can be variable lengths. You can have just a couple lines of XML, and you can have hundreds and thousands of lines. There are rules to it, so you have to be really careful sometimes if you're going to be creating it yourself, that you maintain those rules. And sometimes there's a very strict validation. If you look at like Office in XML, it has particular rules of it can only be this way. Same way with FileMaker. And it may or may not have a namespace, and this is a namespace. It's a URI URL that really doesn't go anywhere. or it's not supposed to necessarily. And this happens to be the grammar that FileMaker uses for import and export, and that's FMP XML result. There is another export grammar, but it's not as easy to do import, so I kind of stick with that. And sometimes XML is pretty indented and sometimes it's not. Okay. I put this in BB Edit to show you the color coding. Let's see if I can open that. There it is. And BB Edit has a way to collapse things. And sometimes you can view it in, let's see. A browser. Now Safari is terrible. It just tells me the values of the elements. It doesn't actually show me the tags. If I view it in Firefox, which I've got open already, it also gives me nice collapsible spots that I can see it pretty well. This is what they call a default style that Firefox gives. Some of the other browsers may use that, and it shows you the tree-like format of the data. I can also do the view source, and it shows me pretty much what I get in BB Edit, but without the collapsible. You might notice that some of the things get changed a little bit. So in my original, I have quotes, but when it becomes XML, it says I use quote marks everywhere. So in order for it to be preserved, I change it into something that will be saved. Okay. It's composed of elements. So like error code, product build, metadata, field, results, those are all elements. And it also has what they call attributes like build, name, version. Those are attributes. And then they may have values in them. And then the actual elements themselves can also have value. And so that's what we're looking for. What are the elements? What are the attributes? And what are the values of those when we're trying to read or write? Okay. Okay, so what are the things that we need to kind of study about XML if we're going to work with it? There are several things that you can go to the W3 Schools site, and it has a whole bunch of things you can study about XML. And I like the W3 site because our W3 school site because it has some try-me's. So if I go next, let me get to another one. No, I think it's in the. Okay, yeah. So it'll give me a little thing to test while you're right there in the tutorial, which I think is pretty cool. So I've got links to all of those. Okay, so the things that I like to study or think you should study is XSLT and XML DOM. But in order to work with them, you really need to know the XPath. And the XPath is the document, or is how you can get to the actual elements, how you can get to the actual attributes, and how you can get to the actual value of those. So let me open my XML and something else I use. And it has a pretty cool feature because you can actually get the, I don't like the way it zoomed up. So I can do the path. So I happen to be on the second row. It was the same thing that we saw in the browser. And I can say, what's the X path? And it'll tell me that the root element is listed. I'm getting the first element and I'm getting the first result set and I'm getting the second row. So that's the path. You see how it's got, let me zoom that up again too. It has slashes and it has all kinds of really cool things to get to the point that you want. Let me show you something else.
So the XPath is like an address in the file.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
XPath. Okay, so I had something else in there. The inspector tells me that this element named product it has the XPath in there too. It has attributes, and these attributes are build, name, and version. If it has a value, it tells me what the value is. That's why I like this Exemplify. It's a pretty cool product. Okay. And it also allows me to do test transformations. So if I'm working with XSLT and XML, I can test it in here and I get really good error messages. If I try to do an import into FileMaker or an export from FileMaker and it brings up this little tiny dialogue and I go like, what is it trying to tell me? It's really, really hard. So I like to do my transformations in this, and then it'll give me very, very good error messages. If there's something wrong in the XML itself, it'll give me a little list of what the errors are in that XML. Okay, so XPath is really important. So again, I recommend that you study the XPath, what it is, how to get to it, and really it's a series of folders. So if you think of folders, and on your computer you do /folder /folder. And then it has a bunch of other options. Let's see. So this tutorial gives you a bunch of things to tell you. The shortcut has a bunch of shortcuts to get to something. So if you do // you want to give me every part in the document that has that particular element. So the attribute, instead of saying, give me the attribute : and the name of the attribute, I can just use a shortcut @ So it's something really I think is pretty important to study if you're going to work with it. All right, the XSLT is really just a set of instructions. And it's going through and it's saying, do this, do this, do this, get to this part in this path in the XML source and do something with it. There are a bunch of functions, like FileMaker has functions to get the substring of something. The XSLT also has that. There are loops in it, so you can loop through stuff. There are conditionals, if conditionals, and case conditionals, or it's called choose. You can have one XSLT import or reference another XSLT. You can have an XSLT reference external XML documents. And I did that one time when I was doing a client export of Excel, and I needed to do several stages. And so I'd create, like in a worksheet in Excel, you have different workbooks, or like tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, and I needed to have that. So I did one export. The XSLT created the first tab, and then it created the second tab, and then the final XSLT said, use those other two exports that I made, import them into the final, so that when I actually did my final spit out, it had a full workbook with 3 worksheets, so it's pretty cool. XSLT can also output to several formats. It can do it directly to XML, any kind of XML. It can do it to HTML. So if you specify, I want my output to be HTML, it puts the tags in there for the web, and it puts in the same thing like the quotes are fixed the way they need to be. Or you can put it out to just plain text, which is pretty handy sometimes to, I'll need something as a particular report. And if I export from XML and use the text as the output, I get a really neat report. But the problem is it's plain text. There's no styling. You can't export images, especially from FileMaker. You can do the base 64, but what do you do with it on the other end? You have to have something that would process it. And FileMaker's version of XSLT processor is only 1.0, and they're up to like version 3 out in the world. So that's it. There's a license to do the version 1.0 of XSLT, and it's not going to be upgraded at any point at all. So kind of keep that in mind. The namespace, XML namespace, is used like for FileMaker export has the row element, and Excel also has a row element. So when you're doing some kind of combining, you're converting FileMaker export to Excel with those 2 elements, you need that namespace to say, which row am I talking about when it's reading the document? Again, it also has a lot of functions. There are a couple tips when you're exporting from FileMaker XML. It's go ahead and use the layout formatting. So if you've got something that's currency, go ahead and format that on your layout that you're using for your export, and check that box on the exports, because it just saves you from trying to post-process in somewhere else if that's the way you need it. And there are a couple things that are fields where you need to combine things and separate things. To me, it's always easier just go ahead and let FileMaker do the thing and export those fields as you need it. Okay, an alternate is called XML DOM. And XML DOM is used in JavaScript, but it's also used other places. It's not just JavaScript, but I present it here as JavaScript. It's a way to read the XML with some pretty cool. Let's see if I can. So it reads the tree in a little bit different way, and it also has different ways to do it. So let me see if I can find an example. Okay, here's the books. And if you look at this, it kind of uses get to the tag title. The 0 is the index for JavaScript, so it's not 1. It is an XSLT. Give me the child nodes and the node value. So it's a little different to do it that way. And but JavaScript could totally read XML, write XML, however you want it, but you still kind of need to know some of that XPath or X pointer to do it. And at some point, I'm hoping somebody will write some JavaScript processing functions for us that we can use as an add-on, because there are no functions within FileMaker to read or write XML like there is for JSON. I don't want to do it. I hope somebody else does it. Let's see what else. There are external EXSLT that extend a little bit of what XSLT has in their functions, and I'll show those in a little bit. The document function is really handy. That's where you can use external sources. There's an XSL that's called XSL FO for formatting objects, and we don't have that available FileMaker, but it's pretty cool because it'll create PDFs right out of your XML. It'll create SVGs out of your XML. I don't see it coming into FileMaker, but it's just kind of something to keep in mind. And there's what they call XQuery. XQuery is sort of SQL-like, a way to get to what's in the XML. Okay. Okay. Back to this. Okay. So this is my little XML versus JSON. Wait for it. Here it comes. They're both text. So if you keep that in mind, FileMaker eats text. FileMaker can write text. FileMaker can read text. It's all a matter of how what you do with it. Okay. So where it's used in FileMaker, XML has import export. The DDR, save a copy as XML. SVGs is XML. Copy and paste objects uses XML. Themes and styles uses XML. Add-ons can use XML. Snapshot links, default fields is XML, and there are probably more that I didn't even list. With JSON, it's natively in the web viewer with JavaScript. Add-ons can use JSON, and there are built-in functions, and the data API uses JSON. And again, however you want to use JSON. So custom functions and functions, XML doesn't have any built-in. I've had a feature request for that, but I don't know that's ever going to happen. We can always hope. There are custom functions that help you write and read XML. And again, it's calculated. It's just text. So however you want to create it is really up to you. You don't have to have an XSLT to create what you need to put out to somebody else. It can be calculated. JSON has built-in custom functions, and it also can be calculated. Then APIs, there's an XML API for custom web publishing. That's deprecated. So, at some point it's going to go bye-bye, which is too bad because I really like it. But when you do insert from URL, getting something from another source, it may be XML. So you kind of keep that in mind. With JSON, we have the data API, which is custom web publishing for REST. And then we also have the execute FileMaker data API for internal. It's all JSON. And then same thing, when you do the insert from URL, you can get JSON back. So we kind of have to have both. Externally processing, not custom web publishing. So we can use the XSLT, the plugins, the tools that are out there for processing XML, the DDR and the copy and save, and JavaScript. In JSON, there's no style sheet, no XSLT. There are no import and export, which would be really cool. And plugins also can work with JSON and JavaScript. Let's see. Okay. At some point, I would like to see an insert into with select like SQL, but in a JSON and XML for both of them. So, all right. So part 2 of this, what's the difference? A little bit bigger. Here's the sheet I had earlier showing you just the XML and the BB edit. And I did something similar for JSON. It's the same information, just in a JSON format. And I did it in a kind of a unique way. I used an array of objects just so that the sort order didn't get munged up. And it pretty much matches what's in the XML. But that was just, again, to show you, calculated can be done. But if you do the execute data API, it's a little different. So you got code 0, XML has error code, JSON has a message with it. It has a little bit different structure. So the row is not a row, it's field data with the actual field name and then the information in it. It has different ways that it needs to escape. Like XML needed the and quote, it preserved the returns. But in JSON, it has to escape the quotes. It tells you its return. If there are any tabs in there, it puts them in there. Your mod ID, the same if that were in there. And then data info, the information that we get kind of at the top is in JSON like this with the name of the database, the found count, you know, how many, I only returned 1 row for this, and the actual name of the table and the total records. So that's the difference. So again, they're both text. You have to kind of understand, you know, what's going to work, what you need to work with. And if you got suggestions on things that I missed in this, then go ahead and put them in the chat. All right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go through some resources that I found. Okay. And so there are 84 resources, but I kind of picked out some of the ones that I want to actually show you. I wrote an article for FileMaker hacks to export field contents when we were trying to get that to come up really good. And it has a little sample XSLT. That shows you how to transform. So basically I'm taking what's in a single field in a single row, and there's my path, and I'm using the namespace and say, give me what's in there, and the XSL copy of will give me that exactly as it is. It'll preserve the returns, it'll preserve the tab character, although it'll be invisible, but everything will be exactly as it is, and it'll be in whatever encoding you've got for that field. That was one of them. Camel Case created a presentation. Let's see if I can. I've got that here. He goes into a little more detail of some stuff. So I gave you a link to that, how to get this particular one of where XML is used. He goes into more detail and on quite a few of them. Of course, the book. Oh, looky there. It's $3.29. Get them while they're hot. I created it, you know, back a long time ago, but there still has some pretty good stuff in it. And I was going to show you the table of contents to let's see. Everything's valid, 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 valid today. The easy XSLT that Russ Cohen created to create rich text format was an app, and I don't think it works anymore. The DTD is different for themes. Everything else, the DDR is different, but it still goes through a bunch of stuff. Web publishing isn't done with XML the same way. It's still used, but it's not the same way as in the book. So that whole chapter is gone. Something about HTML and XHTML formatting kind of gives you a little background. We don't have the CDML, the clearest dynamic markup language anymore. So that's kind of not any good anymore. Bunch of XSLT examples, and that's it. So I wanted to show you that. Okay. I showed you Simplify. And this is a big one. XML schema documentation for save a copy as XML. And Dave, you can start applauding here. And here's the link to it. It doesn't exist. That's the problem. It doesn't exist. And we definitely need that at some point in time. Give us something that tells us what the schema is so we can figure it out without guessing the path to get the stuff. This is the thing I use for introduction to JSON. So I included that link to kind of give you an idea. And I had to put in a little bit thing about standards because we're talking about standards for XML and XSLT. There are 14 competing standards. 14, that's ridiculous. We need to develop one universal standard that covers everyone's use cases. Yeah, and soon, now we have 15 competing standards. And that's kind of the way it is. XML is involved. JSON has evolved. Each standard's a little different, but you can look up the different standards. Again, the XML at the 3W schools has got excellent tutorials. FileMaker itself has example files that you can download. Let's see, that was in. It comes in various languages, and I just opened up the English one. So you can see it's got Spanish, French, Italian, but it gives you the DDT of XML for import and export. And then it gives you some examples of exporting. And it's pretty cool if you're studying XML and XSLT, those are pretty good examples to get you an idea of what you can do. It has some sample imports and exports, and they even give you a little database to make all these work. So download that. You can see I'll give you the link to that. Okay. This is another article I wrote from FileMaker Hacks, and I step through how to export from FileMaker and open up an XSLT, or with an XSLT to open up in Excel. So the basic grammar in FileMaker. it's sort of similar to Excel, and I show you how to create various steps along the way of how to create the XSLT to make headers. And finally get down to some of the details on what's in the Microsoft spreadsheet language. There's a path. And I'm saying, get the field count. So there are a lot of functions that you can do. Set a variable, use the variables throughout. Position is a function that's great. It's all part of the path. And I include the XSLT with a sample file on that. This one I did for community. Back when we had the Jive community, we could create articles. And this is one where I exported just the custom functions from the DDR. So when you come to the export as DDR, you can choose what you want to export. And then I created a sample file XSLT style sheet to import those back into FileMaker. So I know the file name, the ID, the visibility, the parameters, the name, any calculation. So that, remember when we had the old relationship and it was just a list and it kind of gave you the columns? And it's really kind of all I did is I said, okay, now, at some point I want to see those in columns. And so I did that. So that's available. You can download that if you want. The universal XSLT is pretty cool. That helps you create the paths, shows you the paths that are going to be there. And I'm going to do that as a demo in a little bit. Here's the extensions that has date and time, dynamic, common, functions. And you could even create your own custom functions in XSLT to be used so that you can use them again and again and again. Some extra math functions that are not in the standard set. Strings, regular expressions. If you want to do regular expressions on your XML, it has a couple different ways to do that. So it gives you some functions to do that. Okay. And there are a bunch of them that I did. So in here, I've got, let's go to the top. Something about Ajax, something about the APIs, some other articles by other people that talk about different things. DDR and the save a copy as XML. Default fields, information about that's XML. Matt Petrowski did something about converting XML to JSON. Some custom functions in an article. Execute FileMaker data API information. And the grammar, the link to the grammar that FileMaker uses for DDR and as it is now. I showed you BB Edit. Oxygen is another XML editor that has been recommended, and I liked it. I tried it for a while, but I went with Simplify. Visual Studio Code, it shows you the XML, but not as well, I think, as the Simplify. CodePen is another one that's an online code editor for XML. And it gives you a way to do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you can also do XML. Microsoft has some pretty good articles about the difference between XLS and XLSX. Now, when we do the export from FileMaker using any of the transformations, what we get is text. We can't get the X on the end. We can't do the compressed copy of that. So a lot of times they'll get a dialogue and say, well, this doesn't work. It comes up with a dialogue and says, it won't open. I said, well, click the button. It'll open in Excel just fine. So unfortunately, you could post-process if you want, or you can open it in Excel yourself and, you know, save it as Excel. The help topics about XML from FileMaker. More community links about XML and XSLT. Knowledge base has some XML information, stuff about insert from URL, and the execute FileMaker data API and JSON help. FM forums is a forum that has some pretty good information about XML, has some samples. Custom functions. I went to the Brian Dunning site and just put in XML. You get a bunch of different custom functions that may work for you. This is another one that you download some custom functions. Those are kind of like enhanced. Again, the XML DOM from W3 Schools. JavaScript is in W3 Schools and other places. Using npm.js for reading XML, convert it. Again, I showed you the browser, what it looks like. Their plugins, base element plugin, the Troy plugin, MBS plugin. 360 Works is really good if you're doing any kind of SOAP. SOAP is an XML format, and it's a little funky. You can't just easily do insert from URL because it's kind of like a 4-step process. You say, hey, I'm going to send you some XML, and it comes back and says, okay, you can send me some XML. And then it gives you, you know, like a little key or something to pass it on, and you send it, and then you get your response. And the plugins are excellent at working with SOAP, but trying to do it directly within FileMaker is not easy. The clip manager for reading the clipboard, FMButler to empower. There's something about SOAP UI if you want to look at that. There are other standards from the W3 technologies. Another one is What WG is another website that has some standards you want to look at. This is if you want to look at what XSLT does, and it gets pretty gnarly as you're reading through it. But it really defines exactly what's allowed and what's not allowed in XSLT. Some comparison of DOM processors, something about SVGs, which is all XML. Some tools, FM perception, comparison, damage detector, base elements, Inspector Pro, FM X-ray specs, which the URL didn't work for me, JSON and other utilities, tools, FM Workmate's a tool, more on Microsoft Office spreadsheet markup language, if you're going to work with that. XPath. XSLT Fiddle is another one I liked. It allows you to actually test like it do in Simplify. We have your source XML, your XSLT, and then it gives you the result. These are both using version 1, so that's what FileMaker uses. Munchian method is a way to group things within the XML export to through the XSLT to do things that you can't do otherwise, like crosstabs or subsummaries, and I think one of the examples for FileMaker uses this method, so I put that in there of what that is. There's a sample of way to export to Excel put out by Doug Stawa, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to take some questions, and I think that'll lead into what you want me to demonstrate. So let's see if I can find the chat. I guess I can't see the chat, can I? I'm going to stop the share and see if I can see the chat. Okay, let's take the questions. Yeah, Daniel says, yes, the W3 schools has stuff for SQL too. Oh yeah. I mean, it's my go-to. Where was that when I was trying to write the book, right? Yeah, Chris Moyer's got the plugins. I had a link to that. Okay, Paul Client sent me a 75 megabyte XML file.
Yeah, that was.
Probably it'll work in BB Edit.
Yeah, well, I couldn't get the file out. Google Docs wouldn't give it to me. The only thing I could do with it was to open it in Apple News, which just wanted me to sign up so I could see insurance ads or something. So it was kind of frustrating, but yeah, I think we did end up compressing it and sending it by Dropbox.
Yeah. Yeah, zipping XML for transmission. Yep, you're right, Dave. Yes, the import XML, you specify the XSLT, or export XML, you also can specify the XSLT. And some of those samples articles that I have show you how to do that. What do you think about doing the XSLT transformation sheet ahead of time outside of FM using a feature in the OS? I don't use the OS, but I use Simplify all the time. When I'm doing something for a client and it's really different, I'll use Simplify to see what's going to break and not break in my transformation. And I can fix the stuff right there. Then I know I'm not going to get these really strange errors in FileMaker. Yeah, there's the link to Simplify. One-time transformations, do it externally. Automation is FileMaker. Yep. Everything, you're right, Dave. Everything gives you a better error message in FileMaker, right? Especially when you're doing that XML, the XML export or import, and there's an error in anything. It's the smallest dialog box that can possibly give you, and they're going to tell you it's on line something something, and then they give this huge bunch of text, but you can't even see the end of. And so that's why I said do it somewhere else. FM Butler, yeah. Yes, FM Butler is end of life, but it's still available. Jacob Ventures to Empower. See, you all put all the stuff in that I had. Comparison, what are constraints of FMXSLT being at 1.0? I don't do a lot with the other versions of XSLT. And like I said, that XSL-FO formatting objects would just be wonderful. The limitations are what it can do, and trying to jump through hoops to get something out of FileMaker as a pure export, I think is, it can be done, but because it's only at level 1 for that version, there are quite a few functions that are in the newer versions that would be wonderful. But I already know that FileMaker is not going to upgrade it. It's a licensing issue. They're just not going to do it. Okay, any other questions? Anybody want to see anything? You want to see a transformation?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let me simplify again. Okay. Okay, this was my export that I did, and it's the sample export. It's not even.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, that's right. I gotta share again, don't I? Share. Okay. All right. So back to simplify again. This is the sample export that I used for the demo. I'm going to now open that universal import. And it takes any XML and it reads that XML regardless of namespaces or whatever. It creates a field called path. It creates a field called parent. It creates a field called node. It creates a field called value. And it creates a field called type. So, and it does some pretty nice stuff of getting the values of what it's looking for. It's pretty simple. It's not even a very long XLT. Okay, so I can come up here and I can say transform an open XML document using the current, and it creates see, that did it for me pretty fast. If there were any errors, it would tell me. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And I'm going to let FileMaker open it. And it's already transformed. I don't need a source style sheet because I already did it. Continue. And it converts it. Okay. See, and it gives you the path to all of these different things that are in that XML. Now, this was a pretty basic XML that I did, but it'll get to the even if they're attributes. Tells you what it is. It tells you the value of it if it has something. It tells you if it's an attribute or an element node. I mean, it's pretty good if you're looking at something and go like, what the heck is this? I use this first and bring it into FileMaker. And then I've got something that kind of gives me a little overview. I can kind of see what repeats. You get down to row, it repeats, you know, in that result set, it repeats those rows, it repeats columns. So it kind of gives me a little overview of what that path might be if I'm trying to get to something. Okay. I had something else on here too. I was going to look at these. Style sheet. You can actually use CSS to open up. Okay. This is the summary one. See, they're importing another style sheet. I thought this did the Munchian. One of them does the Munchian. That's what I just had. Okay. I'm going to just file, export. I'm going to use the type as XML. And I'm going to save it as save it. Continue. See, there are two different grammars for export. I'm going to do all fields. If I had some fancy formatting, I would check this. Export. Okay, I'm going to transform with one of their current document. I'm going to find one of their examples from the desktop. And there it did it. I'm going to open that. Okay, so the important part of this is at the top, where the output method is HTML. So even though we're using the style sheet on XML, what we get back is HTML. I'm going to save that. I renamed it wrong. Fine. Don't want to open it. Open with Firefox. And so it converted what was in the database that got exported as XML, converted it to HTML, and made a chart with colors and all kinds of stuff. Let's see. Any other really specific questions? Or
I have a question about BB Edit. I can't get the thing to collapse.
Okay. What kind of extension do you have on the file?
.xml.
Okay. And you're not getting any of that?
Hang on, let me share my screen out, see if you can. It's
Okay.
probably.
I may have to stop.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've got this file. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Do I need my line numbers turned on in order to do that, or what do I need?
Yes. Yeah.
That's under here, line numbers.
Yeah.
But I don't get a little flippy tab.
Okay. So what you got, you've got some spaces in there rather than tabs. So it might be you want to get rid of the opening spaces in there.
No, I think the big issue is if you hit the little gear icon in the upper left-hand corner, gives you an easy way to get to turning on. And you see
yeah.
Right side,
there we go.
the gutter.
Okay.
The gutter.
I need the gutter?
Yeah. The gutter is where those triangles appear.
Ah, okay. There they are. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I knew there was an easy solution.
I spend probably 20% of my time in BB Edit going up to that dialogue and turning on and off text wrapping, turning on and off gutters, turning on and off line numbers, depending upon whatever I'm trying to do at that moment. So
Thank you.
yeah, very common.
Okay, and Dave put in some more stuff in the chat. Is XML DOM an alternative to XSLT? Daniel asked. Yes. DOM is using JavaScript or another application that can read the tree of the XML. It's not using XSLT at all. It's using JavaScript or whatever the app is that you see. You can use C. You can read it with all kinds of stuff. And so DOM is document object model, and it's taking that XML and says, here's the tree-like structure, and it'll let you get at with the passage you need to get at. So it's an alternative way of reading XML without the XSLT. Good. Okay. Any other questions?
Hey, Beverly, I got a question. Would you say, is it fair to say that FileMaker Claris International is supporting different XML grammars, most notably perhaps the clipboard grammar, which seems to be different than the DDR grammar, which seems to be different than the save as XML grammar. And I would expect the clipboard grammar for representing FileMaker code objects is going to stay the same, whereas the save as XML might replace the DDR XML. Do you have any predictions for the future?
I don't have any predictions, but yes, you're right. They are different grammars, and even when we did the XML API, it has several different grammars that it uses that are also published. If you look at them, for getting at the XML that you use for web publishing. And I don't know that there's consistency. I would really love to see the clipboard, the copy paste XML be the same as we'll get in save a copy as XML. That's just what I would love to see. Doesn't mean we will. I have no idea.
That would seem to they'd have a massive backwards compatibility issue, I would think.
I don't know.
Because you'd want to, I think we frequently find ourselves copying from, I've copied code from FileMaker version to version, right?
Uh-huh.
My understanding from a couple of conversations with FileMaker folks is that the plan on an unknown, theoretically infinite timeline is that eventually the new XML grammar will replace both the DDR and the clipboard grammar. Eventually. I think one of the hints to that happening is the grammar for the XML for copying custom menus. The XML that they used for the clipboard for custom menus is the new XML, not the old XML.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good read.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess they could they could manage the transition. I can see how they could do it, and then they'd standardize on one grammar, which would make their life easier.
Well, you look at the import export. It uses a URI that says FileMaker, and well, we're not FileMaker anymore. We're Claris. Do we need to change that URI? No, because it really doesn't go to any link. It's just a namespace that they used, and for backward compatibility, you keep it at that, and who cares? So who knows what they're going to have for import export. If they're going to change that, I have no idea. But like I said, you can create calculated XML if you want to do that and just spit it out. You don't have to do an export with a style sheet.
Yeah, I mean, first time I did XML was just wrote it as wrote it out as text and wrote it to the hard drive. For exporting, that was relatively straightforward process. Just
Yeah.
write it as text.
Yeah.
You know, then no shame in that.
No, you just have to, again, open it with something that validates it, make sure that you didn't, you know, do something funky. The conversion isn't automatic for your like your ampersands and your equal signs and your quotes and things like that. So there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind, and you have to be really careful that you obey all the rules that you have for XML. But yeah, you can just spit it out. Same way with JSON. You can do whatever you want as long as it's valid. Just crank away and do it.
Right.
Okay. Couple people leaving. Any last questions or other discussion you want to go into? It's like I say, I don't know what's going on at FileMaker. They don't call me anymore. We don't have conversations about XML, but yet they've increased everything XML and FileMaker. So just be aware it's there. I don't think it's going away.
Yeah, I guess, does anybody have any, I know we're getting close to the 8:30 hour. Anybody have any questions for Beverly, or even a question just thrown out to the group that you ran into an issue that's got you stumped over the last week or anything?
Everything's working perfect.
All right.
Of course. Like I said, I'll send that the PDF of the slideshow I did, so you've got all those resources that you can go to that I listed, and you know, some of the other little tips and notes that I've got on there that'll cover what's in the recording basically, but not the demos, of course. But it should go
That was a
over
really great overview. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it took me 3 years to write the book, so I figured, you know, 20 minutes to an hour wasn't going to cut it. So I tried to cram as much as I could into here's the overview, and, you know, here's all the resources. Just as you get into stuff, you know, go back to the community and ask questions. There are several people that answer on XML and XSLT, and you know, if you want to look to the future, start looking at the XML DOM, because I would love that someday they would create functions for us that would allow us to read and write XML like we do the JSON, but I'm not holding my breath. I don't know anybody else.
Right. Okay, well, I guess I have just a few things here.
I have one more thing, Todd, if there's time.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
I have this strangest situation that for some reason, I have had to reinstall FileMaker several times. 19, 18, it's happening in both of them. I've upgraded them. I have to make sure I have the current certificate. What is happening is we have a domain name, and when I put that host name into the domain name, it says it cannot be found. Now on my other computer, it does find it. On my iOS devices, it finds it. It's just this one particular computer. I don't have any firewalls up. It's just the strangest thing. And I was just wondering if anyone has ever heard of something like that.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think I've ever run, because this is what it's the client that you're having to reinstall on, and it's not seeing the server, correct?
Correct.
And they're all on the same subnet?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever run
Bizarre.
across that. Yeah.
Okay, it's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, no, when you've done the reinstall, the only thing I could think of is that sometimes if it's on a Mac, you know, there's the library files that sometimes get left behind, so you're not doing a clean install even when you do a reinstall. But if you're on Windows, then that's probably that may be a non-issue. I don't know if something like
It-
that could be.
It's on a Mac. Sorry, I didn't clarify, but it is on a Mac.
Okay.
Mm.
I mean, that's only I would think to try would be to make sure that any of those files are also gone before you do the maybe it's picking up something there. I don't know if anybody has any better ideas.
Bizarre. It has me baffled. It does. I even have I reformatted a disk and started all over with a fresh operating system and put it on there.
Okay. Well, if you've done that, that would rule out the.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Okay, well, it was one more thing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if we have any epiphanies, we'll be sure to send the ideas your direction then.
All right.
Is
Thank
the
you.
network wired or wireless?
It's both. I've tried it on a wired network. I've tried it on a wireless.
Okay.
I checked all the routing, the router. There's nothing prohibiting that coming through. Like I said, I have two computers sitting on my desk. The one, it works fine. It actually is the one that's worked with Big Sur. It's running fine. I do it on my OS devices, whether I have it on, just cellular data or on the Wi-Fi, it works fine. It's just I'm in Catalina on this one. It was working fine, and then it just stopped. So that's why I was reinstalling. Then I decided to just wipe the whole drive, start all over. That's why I have all those external hard drives that I was talking about before. So
I think I may have seen something similar once. It was more of I was using a laptop as a server to serve to 3 or 4 iPads in the room, but we had to go through 6 different iPads to find 4 that could actually see the server. Now that was using FileMaker Go. I mean, there's a lot of differences to your situation, but it was a weird thing where all the machines were basically set up the same, but some of these machines, for whatever reason, couldn't see the host. So unfortunately, I don't have a suggestion for an answer. We threw additional hardware at it until we found enough stuff that could connect. And it was for a very ad hoc situation. So it wasn't something that I had to solve long term, but you may not have been the only person to have seen this.
Okay.
Yes, I've got.
Okay. Well, it's just reassuring that somebody else has actually seen this.
Are you connecting wired or wireless? Or did you say both?
I tried both, yeah.
I've had a situation where wireless would connect intermittently and then fall off after, every 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. And wired was fine. And I don't know what that was, bad radio, bad router, something like that. But if you're wired though, I would think that would work all the time.
All right. I just wanted to see if I could stump the group. So there we go.
You succeeded. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen real quick just to go over some of the end of the meeting stuff here. So Kim stumped us there for our one more thing. And I'm Thomas, I don't know if you were there or if you or Teresa want to speak to this announcement. Did we lose Thomas?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I step away for a sec. Yeah, so the I believe this is really being run by the Portland FileMaker Meetup, Claire's FileMaker Meetup group. And they are doing a duel, and they've invited a bunch of other meetup groups. So I know that Seattle's coming in, we're going in, and a few others. So if you'd like to join, go to meetup.com, join the Pittsburgh FileMaker group, and then when you go to attend the meeting, you'll be sent a Zoom link to go to the meeting. So for tomorrow, not tomorrow, in a week, next Wednesday at 1 p.m. and it's scheduled to be an hour long. And then there's going to be a second one they're calling part 2. I believe that's Thursday at maybe 5, and this is Eastern time. So that's that.
Okay.
Yeah, the Thursday is a co-production with Dig FM, and
Right.
so it's a
Right.
2-day extravaganza.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll make sure that that link is in our follow-up email along with the other stuff from our chat. So, let's see here. Just some shameless self-promotion. Across, we have a couple lunch and learns coming up here later this month. LinkedIn or Slack. You can contact Laura if you want to jump in there. Took a survey. Last month we talked about how you find problems within FileMaker, and I'd say the majority got a number of useful tips. So that was a successful meeting. So that's good. We also asked when gathering system requirements for a new project, what tools do you use? So we had, I think, everything that was there got at least one vote. We had a few that were write-ins even. But the one that everybody said they still use is pen and paper. So it's kind of interesting to see those responses come in. And then I don't know if this is surprising or not, but the majority said the Pittsburgh Pirates aren't going to do very well this year. So that was the last survey question. And nobody, we had a few optimists in the group, but nobody expects a World Series trophy to come back to Pittsburgh this year. So there we go. Next meeting is going to be June 2nd. Claris Engage Beyond is coming. It's a virtual event, and there's been a change since our last meeting where it's now going to be, instead of just over a couple days, they're actually spreading the content out over a number of months, just so you don't have to try to carve out, 8 hours in a day for 3 straight days, which I think is kind of a nice way to do it since it's going to be virtually anyway. And then there's more details on the way. I guess there's a call for presenters and content that has been made on the community. So I'll make sure that link is included in our follow-up email if presenting something is something that appeals to you. And then in other important dates, Kennywood opens for their season on May 8th. So if you want to go ride the Jackrabbit or Thunderbolt, you can start doing that here on Saturday. So our next topic is going to be a roundtable, at least at this point. So once we know some more details, we will let you know. There will be a survey. And I guess just thanks to Beverly for sharing her insight and giving us that great overview. Also, thank you to everyone else who's joined us. And a special thanks to Thomas and Teresa for letting us invade their Zoom space. So thank you all. I guess with that, and that's all I have. So, I mean, I guess you probably are already home, but if you're not, you don't have to go home. I just don't know that you can stay here any longer. So,
Yeah, I'll send that PDF to Todd and he can post it. So you guys have all those links.
yeah, I'll try to get, that'll probably be coming out, the follow-up either tomorrow or at the latest, it'll come out on Friday.
Yeah.
So. All right. I guess, and then did anybody, I guess, just before we do sign off, anybody come up with a last question for Beverly or one more thing before we don't want to cut it off if somebody's got, oh, I wish I would have, we don't want you to be oh, I wish I would have asked that. So. Okay, well, I guess that's, that brings us to the end. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Beverly. And everybody have a great week. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.